Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And I want to welcome everybody to the show this evening. It is May 7th in the year 2013. Our guests tonight are going to be Captain TC Randall and Dr. Wil Spencer. I really look forward to this interview tonight. For the first hour, we're going to be, although Wil Spencer will be online with us on the show, we're going to be focusing on Captain TC Randall's work. He is new to the show, so a lot of you have probably not heard of him anyway on my show, but he is, he's got a lot going on as far as healing goes, and some interesting research that actually parallels with some of Dr. Wil Spencer's philosophies as well. And I just want to let you know, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank you for registering for the show tonight. I think there's about 390 of you who registered in. And then the chat room. Hello, chat room people. If you have any questions in the chat room, just go ahead and post your question for the guests, and our producer Thomas, thank you very much, Thomas, will bring in to our chat room, our private chat room here at the show, and we'll get those questions answered for you as you pop them in there as much as we can. Now, generally, when we have a show like this, sometimes we do get a lot of questions. We will try to get to all of those questions, and of course, we have a new phone number, and I did post that for you into the event page. So we have an extension that just comes to my show, my very own phone number, so be sure to use that number when you're trying to get a hold of us. I also want to congratulate Revolution Radio for their success in opening Studio B and becoming number 2 in talk radio on the internet. And that is a huge mountain to climb, and it's been achieved. So I want to thank Revolution Radio for all of the work that you have done. Remember, people, we are all volunteers here, including all of the, over 55 hosts now, and giving the public information and awareness, which is very key, and that is the motto of Revolution Radio, where we have truth never sleeps. And again, my first guest is Captain TC Randall. A little bit of background from his website. Disease and bad aging are basically inflammation, which can also be called oxidative stress, burning, rust, or the molecular deconstruction of living cell structures by oxidation. Electron theft, he calls it. Oxidative stress is accompanied by cellular suffocation, since oxygen in an acidic electron-poor oxidized environment becomes water, not metabolic electron energy, the energy life operates on. Captain Randall outlined the common denominator of disease and authored the book Forbidden Healing in an effort to awaken the public to simple prevention techniques and effective reversal of cancers, heart disease, COPD, arthritis, gingivitis, and the list goes to infinitum. He addresses all chronic diseases using an 11-step electrochemical approach. Since life is electrical and all molecular relationships depend on the plus-minus attractions, one can control chemistry, at the most basic atomic level, and usually treat his condition at home, or have the awareness to select an alternative physician, while the mainstream still searches for cures, raises enormous sums of money, and promises breakthroughs just over the horizon. Safe, simple, inexpensive therapies already exist. Just they have been discredited and suppressed by a profit-driven system, and you've all heard that on my show before. Conventional pharma care thrives on ignorance, control of information, and helplessness of the public. So folks are easily misled into voodoo drug medicine And heck, with insurance and copay, drug is cheaper than real food or vitamin mineral supplements and easier than assuming personal responsibility for one's life. Captain Randall is a natural health researcher, organic farmer, and environmentalist, among other blogs. He has blogs. We put them into the chat room. Again, the book is called Forbidden Healing, The Curiously Simple Solution to Disease by Captain TC Randall. Captain Randall, welcome to the show.
Hi, Roxy. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm in alignment with your some of your treatments, and you can begin wherever you like. The audience here is new to you, so I think we've given you a proper introduction. But where would you like to begin?
Well, probably at the beginning. I mean, health is all about the phenomenon of life, and it helps to understand how it works, how it began, its evolution. Life on Earth started in the oceans with an electron-rich reducing atmosphere, high in methane and ammonia, the perfect conditions for molecules to bond together into biochemicals, since chemicals bond through their electrons. Then plants began producing oxygen to create an oxygen-rich environment, and we had megafauna, huge dinosaurs, and so forth. And then you saw the soils around the world, the iron-rich soils all turned red. That's because the iron was oxidized into iron oxide, which is rust. Then natural disasters came along and devastated Earth, and then those oxygen levels fell. And with less oxygen in the atmosphere, all the life forms got smaller because you just can't get enough oxygen to support a huge biomass. When the oxygen levels, say, fall to our current 20% from historical 30% levels and possibly higher atmospheric pressure. So you can't supply enough energy to keep these large creatures alive. And now with our electron situation as it is and the oxygen situation as it is, it's hard to keep humans healthy because we all teeter on the edge of suffocation. And I use the analogies of our body as an aquarium. Our cells are like fish. And eons ago, when the oxygen was more plentiful, we had more energy. We were healthier. Today, we have lower oxygen levels, and plus we have all the electron and oxygen robbing fake foods and mercury and aluminum, the metals, the other organic toxins. We have sedentary lifestyles and all these various stresses that come upon us from, the television and the mass media. Our cells are sucking for air at the surface. We suffocate from lack of electrons because that means less oxygen. And cancer starts with acidic hypoxia. Oxygen cannot reach these cells. They go into survival mode and begin metabolizing sugar without oxygen. The rest of the chronic diseases start the same way. And, we basically have messed up chemistry. And that's where you start with an approach to the problem. Now, after I cured myself, which was pretty well by accident, of course, I had a direction, but I didn't know until I knew. But then I had the secret of life. The most obvious solution turned out to be the solution. There was the common denominator, electrons, the little negatively charged particles that surround the positively charged nucleus of every atom in the universe. It's the currency of energy. It's the energy of all life. And so I came up with a sort of a grand unified theory. And you can approach any health problem by changing the charge terrain inside your body, boosting your life energy. So what I saw was a very different perspective on healing and the perspective of the oxidation states of our molecular being. We see oxidation every day, rusting metal. You cut some apples and they turn brown. Burning flame, you see a flame. This is simply the removal of electrons by oxygen or oxidants, acids, and free radicals. Oxidants, acids, free radicals steal electrons, and electron-rich antioxidants donate electrons. and that's the balance of life. We normally think of electricity in terms of generators made of magnets and coils, but voltage and flow of electrons happens among the molecules our bodies are made of. Chemical interactions are fundamentally electric in nature. They're all attractions and repulsions. It's a boy-girl universe, and nothing happens without that charge. We all sense at some level that life requires energy. I mean, cars need gas. What do we work on? We just don't realize that it's the form of electric charge, or that our bodies are healthy at approximately 65 millivolts and ill when their voltages fall below 20 or 30 millivolts. Those electrons are not only the energy that animates us, but it regulates our entire biochemistry. From the strength of our 70% water fraction to preserving the oxygen we need, to the expression of coiled DNA molecules that blueprint our biochemistry, to the neural impulse that wiggles your nose. You need a lot of electrons to power your cells, and you need those electrons to enable oxygen to get to the cells. You need the electrons to protect your system from oxidative stress, which is inflammation. And when you have an immune response, that's a highly oxidative event. You need electrons to dampen the damage from those oxidants. Electrons also keeps our fluids thin, less viscous, so we have better circulation of blood and lymph, so we can get the oxygen and we can get rid of metabolic wastes and acids. We also need electrons to ensure DNA function, telomere protection, so our DNA doesn't unravel. All the biochemical processes, and we need electrons to detox, to eliminate metals and neutralize radiations. Things stick and unstick due to charge. But on the flip side, on the oxidative side, you need oxidants like hydrogen peroxides, nitric oxides. This is immune ammunition. This is how our immune system destroys pathogens and organic toxins and cell debris. We just burn them inside of our bodies. So we live in a balance between these opposing fundamental forces. The key approach is in getting more oxygen to boost metabolism, to produce more electrons. Electrons to oxygen to electrons. That's the triple play. You gotta kind of think about that and toss it around in your head till you understand the nature of oxidation and antioxidation. Level the playing field. You level the words. Too few electrons equals too little oxygen equals too much oxidation equals oxidative stress equals inflammation equals disease. And so if you can follow the electrons, you can follow the oxygen, you can follow the money. We can boost electrons and oxygen and produce oxidative immune bursts simply inexpensively and effectively with things like vitamin C, hydrogen peroxide, baking soda can shift body chemistry, boost charge terrain, nutrition, detoxification, emotional healing, and lifestyle choices. Those are the areas. And life just takes some simple skills to stay healthy and live long and prosper. That's about the size of how it all works. We can get into the particulars of these various practices, how you take vitamin C, what it does, what hydrogen peroxide does, how you use baking soda, etc. And for your different conditions, there's a little different emphasis, but it's basically all the same protocol for just about any problem. And that's where the cause lies, and that's where the solution lies. So.
Great. Captain Randall, I was wondering on, this inflammation, for instance. There are a lot of inflammatory diseases. A lot of people who call in the show or write the show have inflammatory diseases of one kind or another. What would somebody do, let's say, if they had a inflammatory disease of some sort? Where would they begin?
Well, like I just said, every disease basically involves inflammation. I mean, inflammation is your immune system gone out of control, and there's an irritant there. There's a cause for this inflammation. You know, it's either a pathogen or some bad molecules or some sluggish circulation or some dying cells. Whatever the reason, inflammation is there, and it's basically you're oxidizing problems in your body. Your immune system is shooting out hot oxygen, singlet oxygen, to try to destroy the problem. It's like a flamethrower. It goes through your body and it burns what it doesn't want and then eliminates it. So you're talking about everything, and the answer is more electrons. And then the question is, how do you get those electrons?
Right.
And every one of the natural theories does that. Every one of the natural practices. You can go to breathing. Breathing, supplies more energy to your cells. Vitamin C, proper foods, good sleep. I mean, all the things that your mama told you. Those are the things that really work.
Right. And what do you have to say about, as far as nutrition goes? That's a different what we're consuming food-wise, produce-wise. That's now become in question. For instance, organic produce versus GMO foods and things like that. So when it comes to nutrition, there seems to be a long list nutritionally. What someone should be eating and shouldn't be eating. Do you want to cover a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. You came to the right place. I'm an organic farmer. I grow my own beef. I grow my own citrus. I got my bees supply me some honey. I've got various fruits and vegetables all over the place, and it's all grown organically. It's not sprayed. It's not treated with chemical fertilizers to make it grow fast and puff up with water. These plants are all they're solar cells. They're grabbing energized electrons from the sun. The photon hits the molecule, and you have a hotter electron, and that's energy. And all those carbons bond together, and then we eat them. And we're eating carbon chains, and we burn them just like gasoline in your car. And we need plenty of oxygen to get the energy out of them. You can go into what are the most damaging foods we're eating. It's probably the high carbohydrate load, all the sugars, all the processed carbs, the damaged fats, the vegetable oils, and other processed oils and fats are just, they're terrible. They go to construct your cell membranes, and once you have a trans fat or some other oxidized vegetable oil incorporated in your cell membrane, it doesn't conduct electricity, it doesn't move electrons back and forth, and it doesn't move oxygen in. It doesn't move nutrients properly. So you're suffocating. Your cell is suffocating right there. And that's basically where cancer starts and all the other diseases. Your cells can't function without energy. And if your car's out of gas, you're out of gas. Your battery's dead, you need to get it jumped. You can go into the nutrient quality of all these vegetables. If they're grown chemically, the nutrient quality is generally dismal. All the animals that are in these confined feedlots are fed on grain. I mean, you couldn't raise an unhealthy or fatter animal. And once the animal's pastured, it's getting all kinds of phytonutrients and antioxidant vitamin E and carotenoids and the whole gamut of minerals, and you got a healthy animal. It creates a different fat balance in its body. We seem to need a good proportion of omega-3 fats to omega-6 fats. In feedlot, meats, milks, eggs, the whole bit. All those products are very high in omega-6 and deficient in omega-3 fats. when you find a grass-fed meat product, that's the ratio comes up to a good 1-to-4, 1-to-3 ratio, where you have a lot bigger quantity of omega-3 fats in there. And those are the anti-inflammatory ones that conduct charge through your cell membranes, and you get the oxygen, you got the energy, your cells will function. And the whole idea with healing is to restore that terrain to your cells so that they can function. And once they can function, they take care of business. All these modern drugs and things, they're looking downstream at far off enzyme reactions and so forth, when the problem started back with the lack of oxygen and electron. So I mean, it's kind of silly to invest millions of dollars in research to synthesize one little enzyme when you can basically clear the board at the start and start getting more electrons going in your body, more oxygen, more electrons. It's as simple as that. There's a lot of aspects to nutrition. There's things that help. There's various mineral contents and phytochemicals, and they all work together. And you really have to study food and learn about it. And people are pretty well don't know where their food comes from, and they don't know how to cook it. And they don't know what to select. They don't know a good balance. And by and large, people just eat way too much, and they eat continuously through the day. And the latest things on diet and weight loss and health and the total reduction of inflammation in your body come from this practice of fasting and intermittent fasting and meal timing, where you basically eat during a 4 or 5 hour window during the day, and this causes your body to go into fat burning mode. And when you're burning fats, you're creating fewer, they call them reactive oxygen species. You're creating less inflammation with these foods than you would if you were eating more often and higher calories and higher glycemic foods, which produce a lot of garbage that your body doesn't need and has to deal with. And so that seems to be a real nice thing to know is intermittent fasting and meal timing, because it changes not only your health but your weight, your mental outlook and function, and it's the way to go. I've been experimenting with it on and off for years, and when you fast, your IQ just keeps climbing. You think clearer. As soon as you start back on heavy foods, you just become literally stupid. So, welcome to America.
Right. And, speaking of welcome to America, why is it that our conventional medicine, or allopathic medicine here, if you want to call it that, is so far removed from the conversation that you and I are having right now? In other words, if you bring this up to your doctor, if you have a doctor, and people write in about this as well, their doctor looks at them like the client doesn't know what they're talking about, their patient, and that there's so much more to it than the patient is bringing in, and they really steer the patient away from reading any more quote-unquote garbage like this. Why is that? Do doctors really not know how the human body functions? I mean, seriously. Or are they not supposed to let their patients know? I'm confused.
Well, I went to school with a lot of guys that became doctors, and knew them before and knew them after, and I don't really think they know. I think they've been trained into a profession. They go into incredible complexity in their treatments. And these drugs don't really do the job. I mean, the results should speak for itself. That you have these patients and millions of dollars later, and they still die. I mean, you don't even get a refund. So.
Right. Oh, no, I hear you on that. And there's, I don't know if you're familiar with an author by the name of Kevin Trudeau, but many years ago, about a decade ago or so, he put out a book, The Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, and he talked about this as well, that it's dogmatic, the AMA, and how doctors are taught, and nutrition isn't something. And again, thanks for tuning into The Truth Tonight. Of course, our guest this evening is Captain TC RANDALL, and of course, we also have one of your favorites as well, Dr. Wil Spencer. Wil Spencer, why don't you hop in and join us?
Hey, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you so much.
Hello.
Glad that you could make it. Sorry, I'm getting a note here that says I'm coming out too loud. I have no idea what to do with that. While you guys are talking, I'll try to turn myself down or something. But Dr. Wil, thanks for joining us. And if you've been following along, what do you feel about some of the stuff that Captain Randall's been speaking about?
Oh, I'm totally right along the line with the electrical concept of the body. We are all electric. Our cells are everything about us, our senses, our taste buds, everything is an electrical charge, positive, negative. I'm totally along those lines. I have a little different ways of dealing with things than Captain Randall, but there's several different ways. What do they say to skin a cat? I guess, as long as it works for you, that's the biggest thing.
Right, no doubt. And we were just talking about with Captain Randall, the simplicity of healing the body. And I know that you both are in agreement about. Captain Randall, you said something so important when you said once you get your body stabilized again or back in balance, give it the fuel that it needs, so to speak, your body will just be on fire, literally.
That's right. That's all you need to do is get the conditions right, get the charge terrain back where it should be, get all your mineral levels good, get rid of your metals and toxins that you've been hanging on to, and get your mind in a loving attitude. That your mind has a lot to do with how you feel. It creates the tonus for your being. So sure.
And do you think that as well, you just, another very important thing, when you're low energy, let's say, you hear people say that all the time, oh God, today I'm so low energy. And they're really, they couldn't be, that is the truth, correct? Low energy is really the correct terminology. That's exactly what's happening. But when you are low energy and you don't even know why, you know what I mean? I think this, and then you go to, because we were talking about allopathic medicine and so forth, and you go to a doctor and then they prescribe you perhaps a number of different pharmaceutical drugs, maybe one or two to start with, and your doctor actually believes that they're helping you. And then now you get addicted to that drug. Your body becomes addicted to whatever that is, and now you can't get off of that drug. So basically, it's not even really a Band-Aid. It's definitely not a cure. What I'd like to know is, with all of the awareness, Captain Randall, Dr. Wil Spencer, why is mainstream still producing pharmaceuticals that really end up making you worse, and nowadays aren't even a Band-Aid or even close to a solution? Where is the disconnect between people and getting the correct health care? Where is the disconnect? How is this happening? And I'll give that question to you, Captain Randall.
Well, I tell you, you can carry that disconnect into why we have wars, why we have agriculture that kills the oceans, why we do a lot of stupid things. We have a media that sort of sets the tone for everything and creates the reality that most people live in, without thinking. and they follow the herd basically, and there's a imposed stupidity. There's an absence of information, so you don't get the information. You don't know what you don't know the difference. The television is entirely a big sales pitch, and those selling things are there, and those not selling things like me are not there. So it's a matter of information and consciousness, and people really don't know any better. Even when they watch all their relatives die one by one from simple diseases that could be cured, empty out their bank accounts to the big fancy hospital, and the results aren't there. You never hear statistics. You never hear many positive results. Every once in a while you do, but I don't know. That's what I've been trying to do for years, is wake people up to the truth about start with agriculture, go to your foods, look at how we do energy, look at how we do wars, look at how we do everything. It's basically a delusion that's been created by the media and the capitalists behind it that have no scruples. Really, they really don't care. They just want to pocket that change and have their island in the Bahamas and live large.
Right, and that makes sense about the money chain, that why holistic versus allopathic, let's say, why there's no credence given, props, big props, to those who are really doing the real work in the holistic area, and really helping saving lives. And as far as pharmaceuticals go, thank you for mentioning that again, because the pharmaceutical industry is inadvertently killing us all if we're on those pharmaceuticals. And it's, even something as simple as an antibiotic. I learned years ago that antibiotics were a big no-no, and that the human body, I knew this intuitively, that the human body could fight, and the human body could raise its immune system, etc. So a lot of people, I think, are just, maybe they're busy, and you're right. They're watching mainstream, listening to mainstream, that advertising, these pharmaceuticals pay the big bucks to be at the front line. And I also want to mention, ironically, I got a free magazine. Like somebody bought it for me, and I get them once a month. And you would not believe, well, you would believe, it's a woman's magazine. I won't say which one. And every single issue has about 112, 120 pages. And 40 of those pages are prescription drugs. 100% of those 40 pages with prescription drugs, one of the side effects is death of that drug. 100% of those. So I'm blown away that, this money thing with the pharmaceuticals, you're absolutely right. And then people like yourself, Captain Randall, and of course Dr. Wil Spencer, basically make this a mission in your life to educate and make people, help people to become aware. Again, your book is Forbidden Knowledge. I did drop a link into the chat room, and we'll drop another one again. Where can people buy Forbidden Healing? I'm sorry, Captain Randall. Oh,
straight out of Amazon. That's
great.
That's it. And
great.
There's a lot of essays and other information that. Now I try to get all these concepts in, and it makes it for a very dense conversation. But you really have to get your head around some of these things. It's no more difficult than high school science, but you just have to apply your mind to it and visualize the molecules and the electrons and so forth, and realize what actually causes disease and what brings health. And the drug business doesn't really have much to say on that matter. They do intervene in certain areas, and but like the antibiotics, why would you need an antibiotic? It's because your immune system is not capable of taking care of business. So you just up your charge, up your body energy, increase your oxygen levels, and sometimes you really need to jump on it and boost them, like with the mega doses of vitamin C and so forth. And that's a skill, and it's kept a secret, and that gets to the root of the problem, why those bacteria wanted to show up in the first place, or why the virus came in and wanted to gobble up your damaged cells that are littered with bad fats and metal particles and God knows what, and they just don't work. So those bacteria come in, the viruses come in, and even a cold is said to be a sort of a symbiotic thing, where that cold virus comes through and strips out your damaged cells. So a cold is actually a healing process. It's a detoxification process. And if you don't go for the root cause and you just buy the mouthwash off of TV, that's where you're at.
Right, more poison, and it does seem like we're consuming a whole lot of poison. Some people, that's all they are eating is poison. When it comes to their foods, GMO foods maybe, or like you said, foods that are riddled with toxicities from fertilizers and you name it, and mishandling of foods, and really that is the mainstream food available, and it makes me crazy. Because that is the mainstream food. The toxic, as you mentioned earlier, the carbohydrates, all the modified foods, modified oils, all the wrong and bad fats, meats, chicken, fish, all of it that's mainstream food. And so when one wants to start to go a different route, it sounds like the more I have people like yourself, Captain Randall, and Dr. Wil Spencer on the show, the more I realize that growing food is probably the best thing anybody could do. Growing their own food.
That's what I do. I select very rare items out of an average grocery store. I skip the meat section entirely, and the middle aisles mostly. Any of that processed stuff, it's just not food to me. And you don't really know the difference. People have gotten away from gardening and farming and cooking. They really don't know the difference anymore. They've got a 40, 50, 60 hour a week job. They don't have the time to spend on it. They don't think about it. Maybe they're lazy, but they basically grab some garbage and suck it down and go on to the TV and the next day at work. And they're really not involved with it. And our government doesn't seem to protect us from anything that a corporate profiteer has to sell. So there we are, and that's that's what the business of America. It's all sort of flaky and phony. I mean, we're in the business of war. We're in the business of grains, growing grains. We're in the business of oil and fracking natural gas and just polluting the oceans with mercury from our coal stacks and excreted amalgam fillings and you name it. It's just totally dirty, and that kind of leads into some of the myths of this modern medical thinking. They start off with the germ theory of disease. No, germs don't really cause disease. Your poor immunity causes the germs to show up. You can make them go away if you make your body healthy. The toxic thing, they all deny the problems with fluoride and mercury and aluminum, and they key on lead for some reason because it's something with children, and children seem to be more important than the rest of us. But the cholesterol myth, they use that to sell the grains to everybody. Oh yeah, you eat your grains. You don't want to eat meats. You don't want to eat fats. You want to go low fat. Stay away from butter's a heart attack. Steak's a heart attack. So you've got all this propaganda that's been pumped out. The sunscreen myth. There's another one. Put on the sunscreen. Don't get out in the sun. It'll cause melanoma. On and on and on. They just come up with this stuff, and they dreamed up this ADHD and some of these other psychiatric diseases, and they're basically bad nutrition. You're not getting the fats to have a healthy brain. You're not getting the proper vitamins and nutrients from your foods. You're lacking magnesium and iodine and potassium. It's very simple. I mean, I tell people, get a hair analysis, find out what's in your body, find out what your mineral levels are, straighten out your nutrition, clean out the unwanted toxins, and get your mind to a place where you're in control. You're the captain. You're running the boat. You got the wheel, and you steer your ship. You spend your money where you want to, and you can tell, Kraft and Procter and Gamble and the U.S. Army to stick it, because you don't need that kind of baloney. And if more people would, they wouldn't. They'd stop selling it.
Right. Hey, just want to make a note of that. People are asking for your book, and so we just Thomas, if you can drop those last two links in, that's how everyone can purchase the book. It goes directly to the page where they can purchase the book, and it is called Forbidden Healing: The Curiously Simple Solution to Disease, and it's by Captain TC Randall. So everyone who's asking, that is it. And now you've got it. Now I notice in the book you do talk, you talk about a lot of things: reversing cancers, heart disease, depression. Can you speak a little bit about reducing bad aging?
Well, bad aging basically happens when you wind up with diabetes or heart disease or arthritis or any one of these other problems, and you wind up spending the rest of your life running back and forth to the doctor and the drugstore and possibly the hospital. And that's what most of these people do. And that's, to me, that's bad aging, because you're not out playing golf or fishing. You're fooling around with a doctor trying to stop the pain in your body, and hang on to your teeth and keep your heart pumping and so forth. And avoiding chronic disease is basically avoiding bad aging. I think everybody should be able to live till they're 100, 120 if they can keep their system clean enough. Keep on a good dietary schedule. Like I said, that intermittent fasting is just miraculous. We laugh at the Muslim world for 40 days of Ramadan. Well, heck, that's one of the healthiest things you can do, is just eat less and eat your meals in a 4 or 5 hour window during the day. You dump a lot of inflammation. You change the entire mode of expression of your genes and how your body works, your metabolism. It's one of the keys. And you've heard the caloric restriction thing, where these people they look like concentration camp. They're just all skin and bones. Well, you don't need to go to that extent. You can eat fairly normally. Just keep it within a few hours, so you're not taxing your digestive system all that time. And you have the whole probiotic thing going on in your gut with all those bacteria, and you got to keep them right. These are the things that the real old people do. They don't eat that much. They eat good stuff. They volunteer a lot. They're happy. They socialize. They're in a community. That's where long life comes from. And I'm convinced that if we could jack the Earth's oxygen back up to 30%, we'd probably all live a lot longer.
So I wasn't even aware that we were lacking oxygen. I didn't know that we weren't at 30% on the Earth. Had no idea.
Or at 21%, but historically we were at 30%.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying. You go back, and I'm not sure how far this goes. Maybe 13,000, maybe 30, 40,000 years ago. There were higher oxygen levels. There were huge animals. Right where I'm sitting in my garden, there were mega buffalo, these giant buffalo, there were giant sloths. There were mastodons, these huge elephants. Walking through my garden, I find the bones. And, they were here, and it wasn't that long ago. And that's the whole thing with oxygen. And the thing is, we've got this 21%. We can use it. We can survive on it. We can be healthy on it. We have to stop all the electron thieves and the oxygen robbers and get them out of our body and get them out of our diet and and our mind too. We live a sort of a nervous, reckless life these days, and everything is quick, and electronic. And if you ever sat down and just listened to a bird sing and appreciated a flower, I mean, it's a whole different life. It's a whole different vibration to your being. That makes all the difference. You put a few of these things together, and you start winding up seeing that a human is a wonderful thing, and life is kind of nice. So.
And life is kind of nice. I love what you're saying as well, with your back to growing food. I get really excited when I plant something and then it starts to grow and it starts to bloom or whatever it is. We're talking now about seeing if we can sustain mango trees and avocado trees here in Arizona. So we're going to give it a shot because they're two of my favorite fruits. And but you get really excited, but you're also partaking in the tree of life, so to speak, when you plant your own food and then grow it. And with your care, your love, I would think there's a symbiotic relationship between those two experiences of growing your own food and then consuming your own food. Of course, it tastes better, it's better for you, etc. And I know a lot of people. I have a lot of friends in Hawaii, where I'm born and raised, who grow their own food. They grow their own gardens, and that's something I was brought up with. And you're right. In the mainland, I noticed that the culture of growing just a few things, like some tomatoes or anything that's indigenous to that particular climate, it's just really gone by the wayside. But I also think that you're correct, Captain Randall, that there's such a huge disconnect. I don't think people realize that what they're buying in the can, in a bag, in plastic, and most of what they're buying in their produce section isn't food.
No.
Very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. And Wil Spencer, I know that you've been so patient and hanging out with us. Why don't you throw your 2 cents in?
Well, I am definitely. I'm a farmer myself. I was raised on the farm. My father had a conventional farm, with airplanes and helicopters and everything, and then I had my own farm. So I'm a proponent for, the biodynamic agriculture, getting to know the earth and the cycles of the year. There is something to say about that. Captain Randall was touching on the ionic exchange going on in the body. The best is get your feet in the dirt, your hands in the dirt, because there's your ionic exchange. The earth will detox you to some extent, right? Just by doing that. And you want to charge yourself right there. Your positive free radical charges will be neutralized just by getting into the earth, laying on the wet grass.
What causes that to happen?
It's a buildup in the body because we're not grounded.
But what causes the detox to happen when you hit the dirt?
The earth has this negative ionic charge, and free radicals in our body are positively charged particles, and it actually it's an exchange. It's like like a chelation, if you will. It's like a magnet. It draws the positive out of your body into the earth and replaces it with the negative charge of the earth, because the earth has a larger what's the word, like a heat sink. It's a larger magnetic draw or a pull than the positive free radicals in your body. Mm-hmm. Is that correct, Captain Randall? You were touching on that.
That's it, man. If you have oxidized or electron-hungry particles sticking to your cells, you just satisfy that. You just give them those electrons that flow in and out of the earth, and they can't stick anymore. They're neutered, and they float out of your body, and they get grabbed by maybe some chlorella you took or some green vegetables, and you eliminate them. That's the way you detox. I like earthing. I sleep on a sheet with silver threads through it. It's grounded to a tested ground. It's an actual good ground, and then again, I take vitamin C, and that's a whole bunch of electrons too, and that's the way I first detoxed my mercury loads and my cadmium loads. Lots of vitamin C and chlorella, and the chlorella is the chelator, and I used a number of other chelators, from the garden, bentonite clay, zeolites, all these things, grab the toxins, but you have to mobilize them out of your tissues first, and that charge is what does it. If you crank up the charge, it moves those toxins out. The other toxins, the organic toxins and things, a lot of them have to be destroyed by oxidation, the immune response. And you can also bolster that with big dose of vitamin C, or you can take hydrogen peroxide or MMS chloride. I mean, all these things produce a lot of oxygen in your body, and that destroys organic toxins. So yeah, I'm all with you there on the earthing. Wet grass and ocean water, those all work great. You feel it.
It's interesting that you both are saying this. So, when you're walking in whether it be grass or earth or beach, it almost sounds like a magnet lets go. Like everything that's making it stick all of a sudden just lets it go, as a magnet would if it reversed itself. And there probably is something to that in chemistry of the body, and I think that's what it sounds like that's what you're describing. That's what I envision when you say this. So, is this a possible thing that for some people, how many, I'm going to ask the listeners, how many of you out there actually crave going to a beach? Crave going on a hike, but you're so busy you just can't, or crave just walking in dirt or some soft grass or wet grass, or how many of you crave that with your bare feet? I'd be very curious if you want to drop that in the chat room, because I crave it all the time when I don't get to do it all the time. And I'm wondering if that's just our sense, our knowingness, our body. And our guest this evening, our Captain Randall, TC Randall, I should say, author of Forbidden Healing, the curiously simple solution to disease, to prevent, regenerate, and evolve your life. And, of course, Wil Spencer, Dr. Wil Spencer, and he's going to be coming out with a book as well called The Underlying Cause of the Unconscious Conspiracy Against Our Health. And I look forward to that coming out in about a month, and we'll certainly advertise both books for you all. So, with that in mind, it sounds to me, I know Dr. Wil Spencer's work pretty well, and Captain Randall, I'm learning more and more about your work as well and what you do as a researcher. I think that you, again, as I said at the top of the first hour, I believe that you are very much so parallel with a few little things that might be different. And so I'd like to just kind of bring Wil Spencer into this as well. Now, what are you seeing as very similar, Dr. Spencer? And then what are some of the little things that you're doing? I know that you both talked about chelation. Do you both do that differently, or is it the same? Because just for the audience sake as well, Dr. Wil Spencer has read Forbidden Healing by our guest, Captain Randall. So with that in mind, what are the little differences that might not be so big, or is there anything that maybe we can learn from both of you and bring it into the middle?
Well, I have a little different view on chelation. I totally get how the minerals act as chelating agents. I use also several different strains, over 400 different strains of microorganisms, as that is like 80% of our immunity are the microorganism population. And they actually are in amongst us in our body. And they're part of this chelating process that actually dislodges the metals, dislodges the petrochemicals, and digests them and gets them out of the body. It's part of that component. and of natural chelation. And that's a biggie that I find very beneficial, especially from the vaccination residue damage, the metals, because some of these metals are extremely exotic now that we're finding. I mean, uranium-235, uranium-239, palladium, tholium. These are radioactive isotopes. I guess the word that I was told, they're exotic metals. They're not only metal, but they're radioactive, and they cause some problems, and they don't leave very easily. It's not like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm just going to give up, I'm leaving. No, they're in here, and they get into cell receptors, and this is where I find it really effective to use the microorganisms or the probiotics as part of the turbocharging, the chelating process. The big thing is that ionic charge differentiation, the earthing that Captain Randall was talking about. That is paramount for discharging the part of this, the overall health. Because we were wearing these rubber-bottom shoes, constantly keeping us separated or insulated from the charge of the earth. That's relatively new in our evolution on this planet, and it has a very detrimental impact because we almost get like static charge buildup in our body, which by itself causes acidosis. And we can't discharge those positive charged ions and gain back the negative charged ions. We get constipated. I mean, if you want to look at it that way, energetically. It just backs up, and then we can't discharge. So that is paramount. I mean, I had a gentleman that was in his 70s. For the first time, I got him out to lay in the yard after the dew in the morning was still there. And I took his shirt off to lay down because he was having massive pain. And I didn't know what else to do for the guy. And I did what I could do from a distance. And so I said, just go out and lay in the yard just for a little bit, you know. He fell asleep and got up an hour and a half later, and he said he was like drunk feeling for the next 2 days. He was in such a different place. He's never done that before. He's lived his whole life with rubber-bottom shoes. He's never laid out in the grass. He's in his 70s. That catapulted his healing right there, just doing that one simple thing.
That is just amazing. And by the way, we're getting some Skypes and some stuff from Facebook and from the chat room here at freedomslips.com. And most of you have said, yes, you crave not only the beach, not only the hiking, not only the soil, you actually crave this conversation that we're all having. So I think that's really interesting, and crave the nutrition. So I think that people are open-minded and they just don't know what's going on, you know, in their world and why they crave certain things. Let's talk about carbohydrates for just a moment. Dr. Spencer, Captain Randall mentioned this earlier in the show, the carbohydrate factor. Can you break that down for us and tell us why this is not such a good thing to consume carbohydrates?
Oh boy, this is a huge topic, and to me this is paramount. This is one of the largest ills to mankind in my book. The detrimental effects of the carbohydrate, the starch factor alone contributing to the insulin and diabetes, irritable bowel, diverticulitis, Crohn's disease, the digestive disorders in general, dysbiosis. There are so many negative effects. I don't know how to say this in any short period of time. There is just a lot of negatives in regards to grains, nuts, seeds, and yet in the general health world, they're telling you to eat this stuff like crazy, especially nuts and seeds. I mean, this is like it's total just the opposite of what happens to your body. It causes more problems, not only with the digestion, but the hormones, the phytoestrogens, the plant estrogen compounds just raise havoc with the thyroid. in the pituitary gland. You want to know the majority of why the pituitary gland is being calcified? Right there in the diet. And then on top of that, we have genetic modification across the board. You might as well assume if it does not specifically say non-GMO,
then it is.
It is. I mean, that's what we have to deal with. That's the insanity where we're living.
Well, and I think as well, there's a lot of potato chips out there now that say non-GMO potato chips, but then you're back to the carbohydrate factor all over again. And you're right, it is touted to eat grain, and that'll get rid of your cholesterol and all the rest of it. I want to bring something else up that both of you, and yes, I'm going to answer a question that's in the chat room right now that the producer just gave me. I'll answer that question for you in a moment, Ace. Let's talk about the rescue, teeth, and how to halt gum disease, because that's how I found TC Randall. That's how I found Captain Randall. So Captain Randall, can you give us what you had? I think it was one of your biggest blog that you had was the gum disease, halting gum disease, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that's true. I had that problem for a long time, and I tried everything I could, and I basically didn't get anywhere until I started megadosing vitamin C mixed with baking soda. Gives you sodium ascorbate. It helps alkalize you. It supplies all those electrons. Plus, vitamin C in big doses releases peroxides, and that's they call it an oxidative burst. It goes along with the oxidative medicine. All that theory and information, and that's basically how your immune system works. It destroys bacteria with oxygen, and what you have with gingivitis is anaerobic bacteria down under the gum line, and you can't really get to it with external means. You can help, but internally that vitamin C that turned the whole thing around, and I was ready to lose some teeth, and all of a sudden, hey, I've got them, and I'm chewing steak, and I found something that really worked. Going back to the chelation, a lot of my problem was mercury and cadmium because I ate a lot of fish. I had some amalgam fillings, which I later had removed. I found the key with the chelation. Now, all these other things help, and the microbes, the beneficial microbes, that's a great idea too. I found that we're looking at reversing the charge on these metals to mobilize them out of your tissues. And I followed this year after year with hair analysis and watched the numbers change. But it seems the key to that is the quantity of electrons that you dump into your body. You may be drawing out a lot of charge. You may be really low, and you have to have a quantity of electrons that overwhelms the problem. You have to really jumpstart it with more voltage than most normal means, and that's what I found is the key to healing is that huge charge influx and the release of the oxygen to destroy any of those anaerobes that are continually poisoning your body. And the carbohydrate. What was the original subject? Was carbohydrates? The carbohydrates themselves are an acidic load on your body. They rob a lot of oxygen and energy. Metabolizing carbohydrates is basically sugar. It creates a lot of reactive oxygen species, whereas burning fat doesn't. So what you want to do is shift over to fat burning, and that means eating a lot more fat and letting go of the grains. And the problem I had with GMOs is first off, it's a lot of grains, and I don't want to eat those grains. Second off is they have that Bt toxin gene in them, which they say can transfer to your gut bacteria. Well, if that's the case, or if it's not the case, still that toxin, what that does is it pokes holes in membranes. I've seen it happen. We used to use BT toxin in the garden. You get a little bit on a caterpillar, and you can watch it just shrivel up. And poking holes in those membranes, we're talking leaky gut. And once you've got leaky gut, you've got all the autoimmune problems. You've got an entire drag on your system. I mean, everything from autism to Alzheimer's to rheumatoid arthritis, all those things, start with a leaky gut. So one of the best things is heal your gut and use those probiotics. But my gum disease is under control. I'm happy. I've got all those metal levels down. My mineral level's good. And as far as I'm concerned, the conventional way of treating them is, it's a painful fraud.
Right, and I brought it up for a reason because Wil Spencer also has the same. He's aligned with everything you just said, and as well, it's in your book. So I want people to take a look at it because you're absolutely right. I had a question from the chat room I had mentioned on another show. First of all, Ace, that's the person who asked the question. I'm not on a diet per se. What I've done is I've gotten rid of all carbs, and I had also a gum disease issue, and mine was, and you just brought it up, Captain Randall. I went into a periodontist, and I've got some really good teeth in my mouth, and I had a couple in the back that were loose and causing a little bit of pain as well as an inflammation. And their solution to the problem was they wanted to pull every tooth in my mouth out. And so what I ended up doing was going a different route. I went through Wil Spencer. And we're doing something different, and very much so what you all are describing, and we won't get into the depth of it, but yes, I am off of all carbs. I was absolutely surprised. I am a very lean person to begin with, so the weight is coming off, and it's becoming a concern, and I've been on it for about 6 weeks, and we're gonna work with it. But I'm doing great. For all of you who are interested, I'll write something about it. I'll do an article about it so that we don't take up too much space on the show tonight. But I'm doing great. I have not lost any teeth. My gums are totally rejuvenated in the 6-week period. They're pink. They're not soft anymore. In the back there, I got rid of a tremendous amount of whatever. I don't know what it was that came out of my mouth, but I had a lot of draining going on for quite some time. But how long did it take you, just out of curiosity, Captain Randall, when you started your, to devise a therapy that seemed to work for your gum disease? How long did it take where you, resumed, normality and you didn't lose your teeth?
I could see the difference in 3 days. I mean,
right, yeah.
Just snapped my head back because I've been dealing with this problem for 20 years.
Unreal.
I'm glad to see that cutting out the carbs did the job.
Well, it wasn't just cutting out the carbs.
Really
don't get me wrong.
Zero carb, but we should go for the low glycemic carbs. Chestnuts and quinoa and even heirloom corn. I eat some of all those things. I just don't go for the white sticky buns and junk cereal for breakfast and that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's not just cutting out carbs. It's a whole lot more going on here as well, and what I'm putting into my body, as you guys have all described already. And Dr. Spencer, do you have anything to add to that? As far as what TC just said about the low glycemic, are you party to that information at all, or is that something?
I'm aware of the information. I just know. No seeds, no nuts, because the phytochemicals in those items, they just raise havoc with our enzyme production over a period of time. Okay. And so that's just my opinion and what I found to work for me. So,
right.
And when people are in such a distressed state of being, usually when they find us, I mean, they're like nearing deathbed. Then you really need to consider making some more drastic changes, because you want to put the body into such a healing state that at all costs, and that's usually what we have to do.
Gotcha. That makes sense. And so you go, basically extreme. That would make sense. And now, a question for both of you. This is a very interesting question that came in through the chat room. I don't know how much it has to do with the subject matter, but maybe both of you can comment on it. He says, a guest last night spoke of the molecular structure of H2O. That being forced through metal pipe puts the spin on the north side of the water molecule, causing the body to age, and one can change this by holding the south side of a magnet next to a glass of water, and in doing so improve the taste of liquids and your health. What is the opinion of the doctor and the captain on this subject? Jump in, because I don't have a clue.
I'm highly into water. I love it. We're 70% water. The planet is 70% ocean, and water is so simple. We just think it's stupid water, but water carries a charge. Water is the charge matrix for our entire body. Water acts differently under different charge conditions. The strength of its polarity. I refer you to Dr. Gerald Pollack. He's a water expert. He's just come out with a new book on water. He refers to the energy of water as far as exclusionary zones where where water interfaces with other molecules. There's a hydrophilicity that goes on, and a hydrophobicity depending on the whatever membrane it contacts, and the strength of the water and the charges in the water determines how things move. And good pure energized water is a wonderful thing for your health. And damaged water is. Damaged water, you've seen in films of water crystallization, they produce ugly crystals, deformed crystals, and well-charged, happy spring water produces these beautiful geometric designs, and that just shows you that those molecules are in agreement that they're highly charged, and their bond angles are all nice, they're very polar. And this has got a lot to do with the movement of charge in your body, the movement of oxygen. Water is just life. Water is so fundamental, and we so ignore it, and the qualities of it, and the purity of it. And, it just even having it,
Right.
We waste it so badly and squander it and drain wetlands and pump sewage in the ocean and over-irrigate all these crops. You run out of water, you're going to run out of civilization real quick. And that's one of the other big dangers with the GMO agriculture. It's heavily irrigated. So.
And it's poisoning our waters as well, on top of it. What about this, Dr. Spencer, what about this polarity, the spin to the north, and all this stuff? I don't know. I've never heard of this. Do you have any comment on that? What the listener is asking about?
Well, I come from a little different way of looking at it, because it's all about body recognition, whether your body recognizes it as something to hydrate you, or if the body recognizes it as actually a toxin. And because it comes down to that. This left spin, right spin, I've done some looking at it, and I don't buy into it. I chalk a lot of this up, especially that, as well as like the 9.5 alkaline water. I've chalked that up for some of this new, these new marketing ploys to get you to buy expensive machines, or it's not valid in my book. The anytime you pump water, filter water, heat water, cool water, the bond on the molecule gets stronger and stronger. And this is a simple test. You put the water in a little cup, and you can add pennies to the cup, and you can watch how high it climbs before it falls over the edge. The stronger the bond on the molecule, the more the water doesn't hydrate you that way. I mean, it's just not natural. It comes down to recognition. You take, like, for instance, a glass of distilled water on an empty stomach, look at your clock, and if you're going to the bathroom in 15, 20 minutes, it went right through you. It didn't even hydrate you a bit. And this is where minerals come into play, because the electrolytes in the water, and this is where the body's ability to recognize it as water is important. And that's a big topic. That's not just a simple 2-minute answer.
Right. Yeah. Well, of course. And thanks for both of you talking about that. It's just a little bit. Maybe sometime we should do a show about water in all the different ways. But so back to the idea of the detoxification. It sounds like a lot of people need to detox. So because you are definitely, if you're part of the food chain, part of planet Earth, and you've been eating all the food that, all of it, you're most likely having some issues of some kind. I don't know anybody. Here's the sad thing, people. I do not know anyone in my life that does not have some sort of problem. And I mean a health problem, something, even if it's slight, including myself. And so, again, thanks for tuning in tonight. And we continue the conversation with Dr. Wil Spencer from bodyelectrician.com, and, of course, Captain TC Randall, who is new to our show. Hopefully we'll be back again, and he has a book that is out, is Forbidden Healing, the Curiously Simple Solution to Disease. Captain TC Randall, of course, they're both linked up to thetruththenight.com. You can always find any of our guests, all their information, any upcoming seminars that anybody may have, books, DVDs, etc., is always linked up permanently to thetruththenight.com. If you want to take a look at our show schedule, we just dropped a link into the chat room, and you might want to bookmark that, and you can take a look at all the shows that are upcoming as well as past shows, and all the archives are listed on that page as well. So in conclusion, and I can't believe that this show has just really gone by way too fast. There's so much depth to everything that we're covering here. I do have a question for TC Randall. I'm looking at your Forbidden Healing page where you can purchase the book, and I noticed that it says contact the author, and then there's a send us your story. What's that all about?
Well, I communicate with a lot of people that that read the book, or on drmccullough.com or some of these other blogs, and I try to help them out with the fine points of what they're trying to do, and how to use some of these various substances to help them heal. I mean, these people are in pain, they're scared, they've got cancers and whatnot, and I did want to get back to one thing about water. When I mentioned Dr. Pollack, the way water becomes energized is through two means: solar energy, light, radiant energy from the sun. That's what energizes water. That's what makes it strong. The mineral part of it is only natural. I mean, we should be drinking out of mountain streams with all the full minerals in it. I can't stand distilled water. I couldn't drink it. I just wanted to get back to that part. But yeah, I answer a lot of questions, and I want to hear from people that have success, that figured out how to get over their problem. They invoke the power of their own intent, to heal and be responsible for their body, and to not live in pain and not be taken advantage of by a lot of this drug quackery. And if I don't help them out, the world is going into some bad pains here, and my life is going to be on the line, and my children's lives are definitely going to be on the line. So that's what basically drives me. I don't like to see people suffer, and I don't want that suffering coming back home to me.
Makes sense to me. You mentioned a psychological aspect to healing. What exactly does that mean for you?
Well, it means you have to really take control of your body and tell it to heal. I mean, your mind is the boss. There's nothing happens without an idea, and you've got to have that idea that you have that power of intent. I mean, these what do they call them? It's just spontaneous healing, that placebo healing, that type of thing. I mean, that doesn't happen for no reason. I mean, there's some trigger in your body that controls that, some mental state, some level of consciousness that helps invoke that healing. And I mean, you have to love your body. You have to care for it, and, nurture it, and send it the right signals. And remaining in a mindful state, a state of basically unconditional love, being in the present moment, all these things, send positive signals to your body instead of, like your women's magazine with 100 different drugs, is like the evening news with the same thing. I mean, if you need an erection, or you can't go to the bathroom, or you got a heart attack,
no doubt,
depressed. I mean, they lay all this stuff on you, and you kind of think there's some mystical cause to all this, but there's not. And your mind is, they say it's 80% of the deal. I say that it's a give and take. It's a chicken or the egg problem. If you have a toxic body, your mind's not going to be happy. If your mind's not happy, your body's not going to be happy. So it's all one thing, and all one universe, all is one, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I really do. I love that. And Dr. Wil Spencer, what's your take on that? Everything that TC Randall just said about the psychological aspect, etc.
Oh, it's huge. When you're in an angry, afraid, guilt state of being, your body is just dumping in all kinds of stressor hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And that's causing an acidosis state right there. It's causing your digestion to be off. There was a study not too long ago that said that you watch people. There was two groups of people. One watched the news while they ate supper, and one just spent time talking amongst the family. Just about every single person that watched the news, the television, while they were eating, began to have digestive problems, hormonal issues, high blood pressure, where those that were just eating and being thankful with the family didn't have these problems. That's the only difference. It's just your state of mind. I mean, today we're being bombarded with all kinds of fear. I mean, just turn the TV on. It doesn't take very long, you'll get it. And that fear, right, that negativity, that way of that emotional drain, it drives your body into places that are very not good.
Makes sense. Makes absolute sense. And then what about steering your body? I like that. I align to that thinking. Steering your body into health via talking to your body.
Oh, I'm aligned with body talk. I'm aligned with, you can communicate to your cells. I mean, we're basically a community anyhow, a community of a lot of trillions of cells, and we have a group consciousness. That's just like Captain Randall was saying. We got a pathogenic overload. It's very difficult to stay focused because it's the consciousness of the pathogenic overload that is dragging our consciousness right down with it.
Interesting. And gentlemen, I want to, sorry about if I'm doing some long pauses or stepping on you. It's because I you cut out about every 4 seconds for about 5 seconds, and it's been like this the whole show, so bear with me. I'm trying to read your minds as you cut out, and it's nothing that we can fix. We've tried it. It's been going on for the last 4 shows, so I have no idea what's going on. But I don't mean to step on, if you're talking and I step on you, it's because I'm hearing 10 seconds of just absolute silence, and I don't know if you finished your statement or not. So that's on my end, and we just go with the flow around here. So what can I say? So the idea, it just sounds like there are a few that you both are in agreement that there are quite a few things that one can do to restore health and to live a vibrant life, a good life, a happy life, a passionate life, whatever it is. And that the contribution would be nutrition, getting yourself off of things that are not good, getting yourself to eat things that are good, live foods, etc., that are not poisonous foods, and then obviously with some ailments, how to attack ailments. I do have a big question about the vitamin C factor because, Wil Spencer, I haven't heard you bring up vitamin C, and Dr. and TC Randall is obviously a big proponent of vitamin C. So I would like you to comment on the vitamin C part, and then when you're done with that, TC Randall, I want you to also tell us what the source of your vitamin C is. So Wil Spencer, how do you feel about vitamin C? And TC Randall, what's the source of vitamin C that you're speaking of?
Yeah, I don't agree with the vitamin C theory at all. I have personally actually had some extremely detrimental things happen to my body back in the the early 90s, following recommendations similar to that. I found there's some information now. It's about 10 years old now about this. The vitamin C and what it actually does, especially to the microorganism population in our body that actually causes some of the organisms to go pathogenic, and so I'm not aligned with that. There's other ways of handling things, in my opinion, anyhow. So that's why I haven't brought that up.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay,
yeah.
And TC Randall, you've had a good experience with vitamin C.
Yeah, I think most people have. Your body is filled with a number of things that hold and transfer and offer electrons, and every one of your nice phytonutrients out of your berries and your fruits and so forth, and your vegetables, the good fats that you eat, your mineral levels of magnesium and potassium and so forth. All these things contribute. I find vitamin C is the cheapest, easiest way to boost the electrons. Now, the electrons go where they're needed. So vitamin C will hand off to vitamin E. Vitamin E will hand off to the fats to protect them. It's all a terrain and a happy balance. I mean, that's why I like the analogy of an aquarium, and the way the water must be clean, the oxygen must be plentiful. Otherwise, the fish start to float. They're not as healthy. It all works together, and there are a lot of forms of vitamin C. There's a lot of other antioxidants that you can take. The thing that I found that I could get the quantity of electrons that I needed to overcome my oxidative debts and to loosen up my toxins and to clean up my body and get straightened out was a pure vitamin C powder mixed with half as much baking soda and a little glass of water, and it fizzes. It neutralizes the acidity of the ascorbic acid, and you chug it down, and you can take this up to a huge teaspoonful, which may be 7 or 8 grams. It's like 7,000 or 8,000 milligrams, and that's quite a boost to your system. The baking soda helps alkalize you as well, and you get a better oxygen penetration. You get that oxidative burst out of the big doses of vitamin C. I told you it's just like an immune burst with the peroxides. It kill pathogens. I just found that's the best, cheapest way to get that quantity of electrical input into your body. I like the earthing. I like all the other foods. I like all these different electrical therapies, the frequency feedback therapies. It's all beautiful, and it all works to some extent or another. But I figure the molecules have to be there. The molecules have to be charged. They talk about the acid balance diets and that type of thing. People don't generally connect pH to oxidation and reduction chemistry. They're dealt with in separate chapters in the chemistry book for some reason. But acidity means there's a lot of protons, and that means there's not many electrons. And you don't want to be acid. You want to raise your pH, which means you're raising your electron, the quantity in your body, the charge in your body, and that raises the oxygen. That raises your energy levels, so you can produce more electrons, and that's basically where the healing comes from. It's getting more energy into your body. It's more gas and more fuel into the carburetor. It's same basic principle. You run on energy. You got to have plenty of it, and your entire biochemistry depends on it. It forms that charge matrix within the water of your body. So your cells are happy little fishes, and round and round it goes.
Right. Thanks for the answer. The chat room was saying a little bit earlier, hi, Roxy and guests. I've been keeping a glass carafe of water on a huge magnet, north side up, for years. Should I turn it over to the south side? And then she comes back and says, or he comes back and says, also re-water alkalizing machines. My energy healer said she had been seen significant negative reactions to them in several clients. So that's in regards to the water alkalizing. And as far as turning the carafe to the north or to side or to the south, I personally have not a clue. So if either one of you want to comment, I know that Dr. Spencer had said earlier he doesn't even buy into the north-south polarity theory of drinking water. And what about you, TC Randall?
Well, I'm not sure about which way the magnet should face. There are people that use magnets on water pipes. There are people that have vortexes in water pipes that spin the water. This rearranges the electrons. I've used one of those units, and you have less junk sticking to your plumbing. I mean, the water is more charged. But why don't you try putting a gallon jar of water out in the sun? Maybe add a little bit of sea salt to it. The solar energy, the photons, and the radiant energy from the sun will energize that water. That's the best thing I can tell you to do with water.
How interesting! Actually, that's a cool idea. What do you think about that, Dr. Spencer?
Oh yeah, I can see that. That's I've heard of people doing that. Yep, absolutely. The sun has some power there, and you're putting a little. I always put some sea salt. I use moist sea salt from El Salvador, and it is very high in minerals. And when you put that in there, the electrolytes are the minerals, and most of the water is so deficient nowadays. Just by adding a little bit of minerals in there, it does wonders on the body.
Right. That sounds great. And as far as the, you were mentioning the magnets on water heaters or water or plumbing. I've read about those too, and I guess they cut back on the hard water. I'm not quite sure if they actually work. I've never tried one myself, but maybe I'll have somebody on that actually has something to do with those in the future. I don't know if they actually work, but I'd love to try one because we have the hardest water in the country is here in Arizona. So we got some serious problems out here. Now, I was going to ask again also, TC Randall, can you spell Dr. Gerald Pollack's last name? Because I looked him up for about a half an hour here, and I can't seem to find him.
Yeah, it's Pollack.
That's what I looked up, and I can't seem to find it. I'm trying to look for the book for the audience on water.
I forget the title. But it's Gerald Pollack. He's at the University of Washington in Seattle.
Okay.
He's one of the best water researchers. He runs water programs. He speaks all over the world about water. It's fundamental. It's very important. And besides putting your water out in the sun, you can just get good, clean ocean water and drink some of that every day. I keep a jug in my fridge. Every time I go fishing, I fill it up and have a slug now and then.
Right. It sounds great. And by the way, if anybody is listening and you found the book, can you do me a favor and drop it into the chat room so that I can add it as a source to the article that I'm going to do on both of these wonderful gentlemen on the show tonight? Anything, we're wrapping it up here. We've got, I think about three minutes here. So anything you want to conclude with at all. And go ahead, TC Randall, just, keep it to about a minute, and same thing with Dr. Wil Spencer. So go ahead, TC.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just don't know what's going on. They haven't been informed. The media doesn't tell them. But there are people out here that care about you and care about what the planet is doing and where we're going as a civilization. And there's a lot of us that don't like the direction that it's taking. And unless a lot higher levels of awareness occur in the collective consciousness, we're not going anywhere fast. I wish you all well, and thanks, Roxy, for the interview.
And thank you so much. I'll be in touch with you for sure, and thanks for taking the time. And Dr. Wil Spencer, anything that you would like to conclude for today?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much for inviting me on, and Captain Randall, thank you so much for the conversation. I'm very glad to see more people looking at things from this electrical point of view, because everything is electrical, and it is, especially with this attitude of thankfulness and the earthing. I mean, there's some things people can do simply that are not very. It doesn't cost anything to take your shoes off and go outside, find yourself some grass or dirt. I mean, if nothing else, that everybody should be doing that regardless.
I don't know why people don't. I mean, maybe they just don't have time or whatever. I can't even imagine it. But and for anyone out there who has listened to the show this evening, it was intended to show views both from Dr. Wil Spencer and TC Randall. It was not intended to be any sort of argument or anything like that. It's just these gentlemen have done a tremendous amount of research, and they're just bringing forward what they feel works for them and for others. And so I appreciate both of you immensely for your work and for coming on the show together. I really do appreciate that. I think that the audience needs to hear all of what you both have to say. So I really appreciate that, and I hope that you'll return to the show in the future. Okay?
Thank you, Roxy.
You betcha.
Thanks, Roxy. I enjoyed it.
You betcha. Thanks so much. And for the listeners, we will have an article out on both, and of course the book and so forth. And of course, I want to thank Kat. Kat, how are you, Kat? It's my producer before Thomas, and we switched. So Kat's producing someone else now. But I miss you, Kat. But we do have the article now. We did find it on Dr. Pollack, and so we'll get that out in the article as well under the source of the article for water, in case anybody wants to take a look at it. And of course, if you're looking to buy the book written by TC Randall, Captain Randall, it is Forbidden Healing, the Curiously Simple Solution to Disease. And of course, we'll have a link for that, and that will be on our website permanently, as well as we'll have Dr. Wil Spencer back when the book comes out that he's got coming up, and we'll be happy to put that on our website as well, to just promote about healing and so forth. Listen, anybody out there, info@thetruthdenai.com if you have questions about today's show. And if you have anything that you'd like to bring forward or have sent to my guest this evening, we're glad to help you out. Info@thetruthdenai.com. Please write us, and we really support our listeners, and we'd like to thank all of our listeners for supporting us. We are Revolution Radio, and we are funded by you, the listeners. So I want to thank you so much for keeping us on the air. You've done an excellent job at it. We are rising to the top. We are number 2, as I said, in talk radio and over the internet, I should say. And, we are becoming the new media. So I want to thank everybody for your contribution and for allowing us to stay on the air. Again, our guests this evening are linked up at thetruthdenai.com. Please take a look at our breaking news pages and articles. We cover over 100 different topics, and I'm sure there's a topic that you'll find helpful for yourselves, I'm sure. And, of course, we have the YouTube channel. Want to wish you a great week, and we'll see you.
See what it does, what hydrogen peroxide does, how you use baking soda, etc. And for your different conditions, there's a little different emphasis, but it's basically all the same protocol for just about any problem. And that's where the cause lies, and that's where the solution lies. So.
Great. Captain Randall, I was wondering on, this inflammation, for instance. There are a lot of inflammatory diseases. A lot of people who call in the show or write the show have inflammatory diseases of one kind or another. What would somebody do, let's say, if they had a inflammatory disease of some sort? Where would they begin?
Well, like I just said, every disease basically involves inflammation. I mean, inflammation is your immune system gone out of control, and there's an irritant there. There's a cause for this inflammation. It's either a pathogen or some bad molecules or some sluggish circulation or some dying cells. Whatever the reason, inflammation is there, and it's basically you're oxidizing problems in your body. Your immune system is shooting out hot oxygen, singlet oxygen, to try to destroy the problem. It's like a flamethrower. It goes through your body and it burns what it doesn't want and then eliminates it. So you're talking about everything, and the answer is more electrons. And then the question is, how do you get those electrons?
Right.
And every one of the natural theories does that. Every one of the natural practices. You can go to breathing. Breathing, supplies more energy to your cells. Vitamin C, proper foods, good sleep. I mean, all the things that your mama told you. Those are the things that really work.
Right. And what do you have to say about, as far as nutrition goes? That's a different what we're consuming food-wise, produce-wise. That's now become in question. For instance, organic produce versus GMO foods and things like that. So when it comes to nutrition, there seems to be a long list nutritionally. What someone should be eating and shouldn't be eating. Do you want to cover a little bit about that?
Yeah, certainly. You came to the right place. I'm an organic farmer. I grow my own beef. I grow my own citrus. I got my bees supply me some honey. I've got various fruits and vegetables all over the place, and it's all grown organically. It's not sprayed. It's not treated with chemical fertilizers to make it grow fast and puff up with water. These plants are all they're solar cells. They're grabbing energized electrons from the sun. The photon hits the molecule, and you have a hotter electron, and that's energy. And
electron theft, he calls it. Oxidative stress is accompanied by cellular suffocation, since oxygen in an acidic electron poor oxidized environment becomes water, not metabolic electron energy, the energy life operates on. Captain Randall outlined the common denominator of disease and authored the book Forbidden Healing in an effort to awaken the public to simple prevention techniques and effective reversal of cancers, heart disease, COPD, arthritis, gingivitis, and the list goes to infinitum. He addresses all chronic diseases using an 11-step electrochemical approach. Since life is electrical and all molecular relationships depend on the plus-minus attractions, one can control chemistry, at the most basic atomic level and usually treat his condition at home or have the awareness to select an alternative physician, while the mainstream still searches for cures, raises enormous sums of money, and promises breakthroughs just over the horizon. Safe, simple, inexpensive therapies already exist. Just they have been discredited and suppressed by a profit-driven system, and you've all heard that on my show before. Conventional pharma care thrives on ignorance, control of information, and helplessness of the public. So folks are easily misled into voodoo drug medicine, and heck, with insurance and copay, drug is cheaper than real food or vitamin mineral supplements and easier than assuming personal responsibility for one's life. Captain Randall is a natural health researcher, organic farmer, and environmentalist, among other blogs. He has blogs. We put them into the chat room. Again, the book is called Forbidden Healing, The Curiously Simple Solution to Disease by Captain TC Randall. Captain Randall, welcome to the show.
Hi, Roxy. Thanks.
You're welcome. I'm in alignment with your some of your treatments, and you can begin wherever you like. The audience here is new to you, so I think we've given you a proper introduction. But where would you like to begin?
Well, probably at the beginning. I mean, health is all about the phenomenon of life, and it helps to understand how it works, how it began, its evolution. Life on Earth started in the oceans with an electron-rich reducing atmosphere, high in methane and ammonia, the perfect conditions for molecules to bond together into biochemicals, since chemicals bond through their electrons. Then plants began producing oxygen to create an oxygen-rich environment, and we had megafauna, huge dinosaurs, and so forth. And then you saw the soils around the world, the iron-rich soils all turned red. That's because the iron was oxidized into iron oxide, which is rust. Then natural disasters came along and devastated Earth, and then those
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear about on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, nutrition, and conspiracy facts regarding your personal sovereignty. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
And I want to welcome everybody to the show this evening. It is May 7th in the year 2013. Our guests tonight are going to be Captain TC Randall and Dr. Wil Spencer. I really look forward to this interview tonight. For the first hour, we're going to be, although Wil Spencer will be online with us on the show, we're going to be focusing on Captain TC Randall's work. He is new to the show, so a lot of you have probably not heard him anyway on on my show, but he is, he's got a lot going on as far as healing goes, and some interesting research that actually parallels with some of Dr. Wil Spencer's philosophies as well. And I just want to let you know, I want to thank all of you for tuning in. I want to thank you for registering for the show tonight. I think there's about 390 of you who registered in. And then the chat room. Hello, chat room people. If you have any questions in the chat room, just go ahead and post your question for the guests. And our producer, Thomas, thank you very much, Thomas, will bring in to our chat room, our private chat room here at the show, and we'll get those questions answered for you as you pop them in there as much as we can. Now, generally, when we have a show like this, sometimes we do get a lot of questions. We will try to get to all of those questions. And, of course, we have a new phone number, and I did post that for you into the event page. So we have an extension that just comes to my show, my very own phone number, so be sure to use that number when you're trying to get a hold of us. I also want to congratulate Revolution Radio for their success in opening Studio B and becoming number 2 in talk radio on the internet. And that is a huge mountain to climb, and it's been achieved. So I want to thank Revolution Radio for all of the work that you have done. Remember, people, we are all volunteers here, including all of the, over 55 hosts now, and giving the public information and awareness, which is very key, and that is the motto of Revolution Radio, where we have truth never sleeps. And again, my first guest is Captain TC RANDALL. A little bit of background from his website. Disease and bad aging are basically inflammation, which can also be called oxidative stress, burning, rust, or the molecular deconstruction of living cell structures by oxidation.
Oxygen levels fell, and with less oxygen in the atmosphere, all the life forms got smaller because you just can't get enough oxygen to support a huge biomass. When the oxygen levels, say, fall to our current 20% from historical 30% levels, and possibly higher atmospheric pressure. So you can't supply enough energy to keep these large creatures alive. And now with our electron situation as it is, and the oxygen situation as it is, it's hard to keep humans healthy because we all teeter on the edge of suffocation. And I use the analogies of our body as an aquarium. Our cells are like fish. And eons ago, when the oxygen was more plentiful, we had more energy. We were healthier. Today, we have lower oxygen levels, and plus we have all the electron and oxygen robbing fake foods and mercury and aluminum, the metals, the other organic toxins. We have sedentary lifestyles and all these various stresses that come upon us from the television and the mass media. Our cells are sucking for air at the surface. We suffocate from lack of electrons because that means less oxygen. And cancer starts with acidic hypoxia. Oxygen cannot reach these cells. They go into survival mode and begin metabolizing sugar without oxygen. The rest of the chronic diseases starts the same way. And, we basically have messed up chemistry. And that's where you start with the approach to the problem. Now, after I cured myself, which was pretty well by accident, of course, I had a direction, but I didn't know until I knew. But then I had the secret of life. The most obvious solution turned out to be the solution. There was the common denominator, electrons, the little negatively charged particles that surround the positively charged nucleus of every atom in the universe. It's the currency of energy. It's the energy of all life. And so I came up with a sort of a grand unified theory. And you can approach any health problem by changing the charge terrain inside your body, boosting your life energy. So what I saw was a very different perspective on healing and the perspective of the oxidation states of our molecular being. We see oxidation every day. Rusting metal. You cut some apples and they turn brown. a burning flame. You see a flame. This is simply the removal of electrons by oxygen or oxidants, acids, and free radicals. Oxidants, acids, free radicals steal electrons, and electron-rich antioxidants donate electrons. And that's the balance of life. We normally think of electricity in terms of generators made of magnets and coils. But voltage and flow of electrons happens among the molecules our bodies are made of. Chemical interactions are fundamentally electric in nature. They're all attractions and repulsions. It's a boy-girl universe, and nothing happens without that charge. We all sense at some level that life requires energy. I mean, cars need gas. What do we work on? We just don't realize that it's a form of electric charge, or that our bodies are healthy at approximately 65 millivolts and ill when their voltages fall below 20 or 30 millivolts. Those electrons are not only the energy that animates us, but it regulates our entire biochemistry. From the strength of our 70% water fraction to preserving the oxygen we need, to the expression of coiled DNA molecules that blueprint our biochemistry, to the neural impulse that wiggles your nose. You need a lot of electrons to power your cells, and you need those electrons to enable oxygen to get to the cells. You need the electrons to protect your system from oxidative stress, which is inflammation. And when you have an immune response, that's a highly oxidative event. You need electrons to dampen the damage from those oxidants. Electrons also keeps our fluids thin, less viscous, so we have better circulation of blood and lymph, so we can get the oxygen and we can get rid of metabolic wastes and acids. We also need electrons to ensure DNA function, telomere protection, so our DNA doesn't unravel. All the biochemical processes, and we need electrons to detox, to eliminate metals and neutralize radiations. Things stick and unstick due to charge. But on the flip side, on the oxidative side, you need oxidants like hydrogen peroxides, nitric oxides. This is immune ammunition. This is how our immune system destroys pathogens and organic toxins and cell debris. We just burn them inside of our bodies. So we live in a balance between these opposing fundamental forces. The key approach is in getting more oxygen to boost metabolism, to produce more electrons. Electrons to oxygen to electrons. That's the triple play. You gotta kind of think about that and toss it around in your head till you understand the nature of oxidation and antioxidation. Level the playing field. You level the words. Too few electrons equals too little oxygen equals too much oxidation equals oxidative stress equals inflammation equals disease. And so if you can follow the electrons, you can follow the oxygen, you can follow the money. We can boost electrons and oxygen and produce oxidative immune bursts simply inexpensively and effectively with things like vitamin C, hydrogen peroxide, baking soda can shift body chemistry, boost charge terrain, nutrition, detoxification, emotional healing, and lifestyle choices. Those are the areas. And life just takes some simple skills to stay healthy and live long and prosper. That's about the size of how it all works. We can get into the particulars of these various practices, how you take vitamin